Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Lilith. Lilith to me represents a character that brought uniqueness and freshness to the game, at least at the start, because up until that point we saw an item like Brother Bobby or Sister Maggie, and we're like meh, I would much rather have a familiar or maybe an item which synergizes or works well in late game. But Brother Bobby obviously have no damage scaling, they have no tear scaling, they don't do anything unique, they just shoot a tear which deals minimal damage. And for that reason, I was really excited when I saw the concept of Lilith, because she essentially made you excited for those bad items. And at the time, we thought duplicating an army of familiars would make an even bigger army of familiars, and that would be really cool to actually shoot and use in the game. It didn't really turn out that way, and now Lilith is stuck in this position where you have a suboptimal character which you play as any other character, so she doesn't really have any unique concepts to her, for example with someone like Samson, because Samson is all about getting damage and that way you get strong, or maybe something like not Dark Judas, but just Judas, where you're weak at the end, at the start, but you obviously have a lot of damage to compensate, and all of those characters kind of stand out at least in some way or another, at least in the early game. But Lilith isn't really like that. Lilith is more in the camp of how do we approach the game with minimal interaction with our familiar. In the sense, that was kind of a weird sentence, but what I'm trying to say is that you really are not focusing on getting the familiars. The familiars are just a nice bonus, and at the same time you're still stuck using the box of friends because you really can't get rid of it, because any other active item on her is kind of wasted. And it's weird because you're trying to get all of the good items which make other characters good, but at the same time you're not trying to get rid of the box of friends because that's the only thing that's going to actually make her more powerful, or at least more offensively strong. At the start I feel like she was a bit more balanced, where the box of friends was actually only 2 charges instead of 4, which made this item much more usable because you could essentially use it every other room. It being 4 charges really limits your options, and oftentimes, at least early on, you avoid from using it because you really can't afford not having it for the boss fight. If you don't get any damage upgrades or just DPS upgrades, you're gonna end up missing a lot of your shots, and effectively that means you're dealing less damage to the enemies, and that's especially true against bosses. A lot of the power doesn't only come from your raw damage, it's also how many shots you can hit. If you have 10 shots and you hit 9 of them like you usually do with any other character because you shoot straight, and you might have like 5 damage and like 5 tear rate, that's quite a substantial amount of DPS, but if you're someone like Lilith with the exact same stats, you're just gonna end up missing a few more of those shots just due to the nature of how this character plays. So for that reason, she's actually a much tougher variation of what she's supposed to be, and every bad run on her just feels much worse than on any other character. Is there a way to amend that? I'm not really sure, but I do have a few ideas. I think one of the greatest ideas, not the greatest, but one of the ideas I've had is that if your item is 0 charges, and that's something that's not really possible, at least with this game, you would get a stat boost whenever you use so essentially whenever you use your box of friends for that room, you would get a stat boost depending on how many familiars you have. And that would really offset the fact that you don't really shoot well, but it would also boost her power and the power of her active item when you're actually stuck in that position. I'm not really sure if that would fix her, or if that would even make her a much better character. Sure, getting a damage boost, something like plus 0.5 damage for every familiar you have, sounds like a good concept in theory, because even familiars which aren't really necessarily offensive, so things like maybe Dark Bomb, which you get from Cambion Conception, or maybe the Leash or something, still give you some offensive potential, and obviously you can use that offensive potential because you have Incubus, and your Incubus basically shoots the tears depending on your stats. So in that case, it would make her better, but then again, you're still in this position where you don't really want to use Box of Friends even more now, because now it's even a more substantial DPS upgrade that you kind of have to save for the boss. And I think a real good spot for the Box of Friends would be at 3 charges. 2 charges does seem a bit broken for things like Greed Mode maybe, or even boss rush, because that means that every wave you could use at once, but 3 charges feels a bit more fair, and I think it's more on tandem with something like Book of Belial, because Book of Belial doesn't only essentially duplicate your damage at the start, but it also gives you more chance to get a devil deal. I mean, that's just a passive effect, and I think that the Box of Friends could really use another added effect to that. And if it was 3 charges and maybe gave you a damage boost every time you use it, depending on how many familiars you have, that would really work well with how this character operates, and I think it would boost her potential. Of course, now that we have modding tools, anyone can just mod what they think is a good idea for Lilith, and even I can do it and then release it, and then we can play around with those ideas. And, you know, if the developers notice it, maybe they change something, maybe don't. But with the state of the fact is that I really feel bad because I just played Lilith as any other character, and familiars don't really add anything extra to me. I will say that I'm a bit more likely to take something like Lil Steven, even though usually I skip him, because I'm Lilith, and obviously it's great when you can duplicate it because you have a few more homing shots, just a bit more DPS, but with the position we're in, the beggars can't be choosers, you know, this was just a weak run, and I think I would have picked him in any case, but because we're Lilith, at least it didn't feel that bad. Why am I saying all of this? Why I'm kind of telling you that Lilith isn't very strong or we're playing her as any other character? Well, the main reason for that was, even though we actually triggered our Cambion Conception, this was the perfect run to showcase that Lilith is just like any other character, at least in my opinion, because a lot of people struggled with this run. It was actually a very difficult run. We didn't have much going for us, there wasn't a lot of DPS upgrades. In fact, even Maw of the Void, which is usually a very good item, didn't work because we can't shoot with Lilith, you know, and up until the point where we got Ludovico technique, we couldn't even use Maw of the Void to actually kill and damage enemies. So that was unfortunate, but besides that, I did trigger the Cambion Conception, and that's something that you generally want to do whenever you have a weak Lilith run, because from Cambion Conception you can get a few nice familiars. One of them is Dark Bomb, which gives you a lot of survivability, and the other one being Lil Brimstone. The Leech isn't that good, and I think that the fourth one, which also exists, isn't very good, and I think these are actually all the 4 familiars you can get. I would really like an item which you just gave for any random familiar, because I think that would make her much more diverse and interesting, because at this point it's just usually you get Lil Brimstone, you're happy, you get Dark Bomb, you're still happy, a bit less so, or you get any of the other 2 and you're just depressed and sad because you can't get a better familiar. With Lil Brimstone, actually this run was much easier. The fact that we can actually shoot multiple enemies and actually kill them in a reasonable amount of time added greatly to our offensive power potential, but besides that, it still wasn't enough for me to actually keep my Box of Friends. The thing was, even though our run was very weak, we had some nice effects, like I said, Lil Brimstone, Cambion Conception. We had the Ivy back, which essentially means that we don't really have to take that much damage because we can always just damage ourselves. And the other maybe star of the show was the Poison Tear, which works very similar to Nose Goblin. I'm not really sure how it's called, but essentially we just stick tears to enemies, and when those tears are stuck to the enemy, they're dealing passive damage over time just because they're there. And that's all of those are great items, but like I said before, this doesn't really make a Lilith character good. This run would have worked so much better or any other particular run. Sure, the only maybe saving grace here is the fact I pick up Ludovico, and if you had Ludovico with this particular item, what happens is, when you stick your tear to the enemy, the tear is actually stuck to the enemy and you can't control it anymore. And that's an interaction that usually can just break you the game, because you can't really get the tear back, which means your offensive potential is ruined. But because we're Lilith, we can always keep shooting because we have our familiar Incubus. So maybe in this particular case, which is a very niche case scenario, it's better to be Lilith than any other character. And I was kind of glad to actually experience this, because I wasn't really aware of the interaction of the Ludovico and this new item. I know it works the same with Explosivo and things like that, but I read on one of the patch notes that this interaction was fixed, which I'm not really sure what it meant. Maybe it was bugged in some other ways, but at the time being, the tear still stuck to an enemy and actually doesn't unstuck. And I think it should remain that way, because it makes sense as to why it would do that, because when you actually stick your tear or explosive tear or whatever tear to an enemy, with Ludovico essentially have only one tear until the next one refreshes. Maybe it would be a bit more flavorful, and of course I don't think it would be overpowered if you just got a new tear when it actually stuck, because that would still be quite a negative synergy, because you would stick and then you would have to traverse another tear to the enemy and then stick it to that enemy, and that would still be annoying, but at least it would be better in the sense that you would have a tear which you can control again. So all in all, you know, this run was a run. It was a run. It wasn't a very good one. We had some nice combos, like I said, Ivy back. The fact we have the negative means we can damage enemies in the room, but this is not anything that won't work better on any other character, except for the fact that we had this combo. And the fact I discovered this combo maybe is a blessing in disguise, because if this was any other character, like I'm saying, it would be better. I would be stuck in a position where I would probably get soft lock and I would just lose the run. And the fact that we have all of these items does give us some quite nice regenerative potential. With if it didn't have Cambion Conception in this run, I don't think we would have succeeded, because the Dark Bomb was such a clutch play here with Bloody Penny and the Ivy Bag. Essentially, whenever we play the Ivy Bag, we get coins. When we pick up the coins, we get hearts, and then those hearts get converted to Spirit Hearts or Black Hearts when Dark Bomb picks them up. So maybe I'm giving her too much crap. Maybe Lilith is actually a better character when I actually think about it. As I said, personally, I do enjoy playing as her. I always try to actually be the devil's advocate and try to think what makes this character unfun or what makes this character fun. But in this case, because it was a weak run, maybe I focused a bit more on the negatives than on the positives. That's not to say this isn't a fun character, that I don't enjoy her. I really enjoyed her as a challenge character, more so than something like the Keeper or the Lost even, because good runs do get really good and you can have some really fun with it, but bad runs, like this one, do end up in a position where you're really stuck. Of course, this was entirely my fault, because I know I wasn't strong enough if I actually encountered a room like this. Double adversary room is something that you never want to see, especially on a run where you really can't control your tears. And the fact, I figured I would explore. I thought, I have the Ivy Bag, I have these amazing regeneration abilities, I can just pump up even if I get hit. They didn't turn out that well, because Double Adversary just proved a bit too much for us to actually tackle. With that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you next time.